Alrighty. So this is third time trying to record this, you guys, so be patient with me. Hi, I'm Gina. If you've never seen my face, you get the Sunday hair and the Sunday look. I just wanted to have you be really clear about what we are doing in this proposal. So this week you're going to draft chapter 1 of the research proposal. It is not an impossible feat. Please do read the sample proposal that I've posted for you. Prior to doing this proposal, I want you to have your literature all read and summarized. So you should have about 5 to 6 peer-reviewed articles that you've read and really understand. Those peer-reviewed articles are heavy sometimes, so make sure you've read and reread them and that you really understand them prior to trying to write Chapter 1. In Chapter 1, what we're trying to do is we're trying to propose a study, okay? And so you're going to write it in future tense. This is what I plan to do. If I were to do an experiment, this is what I would do. First thing is the title of your proposal, and the title of your proposal is going to be formatted in the effect of your independent variable on your dependent variable, just like we've been doing. Then you have a 2 to 3 paragraph introduction, and again, that should be utilizing your peer-reviewed articles as well as the knowledge that you have about the topic. Your problem statement comes next. You know, what's wrong here? What's the problem here? And you're going to write about that. The purpose of the study. What are you trying to do here? Again, as a researcher, you're not trying to prove anything. You're just trying to do something. What is the purpose of doing this experiment? Then you write your hypothesis. And if you remember, if you go back to patent part A, your hypothesis, you're basically stating, you know, this is what I'm questioning. Hypothesis is formatted in IVDV format. And so therefore, say I was studying totally unethical, illegal study, but if I were studying the effect of drinking on driving, again, you can never do this study, totally illegal, totally unethical. But if I were to do this study, my H1, which would be my traditional hypothesis, would just clearly state there is an effect of drinking on driving, or drinking has an effect on driving. My null hypothesis, which is my negative hypothesis, would clearly state drinking does not have an effect on driving. So again, you're giving your experiment 2 options. Something does have an effect or something does not have an effect. Right now, you have no idea which hypothesis is going to be proven, and it doesn't matter. Research is good or bad regardless. You know, research is fine regardless of which hypothesis ends up being the one that's true in the end. But know you're always going to have an HO and an H1. Your H1 is going to be your traditional hypothesis, stating that this does have an effect on this. Your HO is going to be your null hypothesis, simply stating that this does not have an effect on this. So that's null hypothesis and traditional hypothesis. Again, if you need a review of this, go back to patent part A. That's why we've sort of been like reviewing and reviewing and reviewing different parts of Introduction to Research Methodology. Your research question is based upon your hypothesis. You have 1 independent variable and 1 dependent variable in your study, and so your research question will be 1. You will have 1 research question, and that research question will just say, what is the effect of my independent variable on my dependent variable? Again, the only statement you have to make in terms of research question is, what is the effect of my independent variable on my dependent variable? That's the research question, okay? So a lot of these are just like 1 or 2 sentence prompts. Your proposed methodology, you are going to choose either qualitative or quantitative. As I've said from the very beginning, I prefer that you choose a quantitative methodology. Again, just to refresh you, quantitative has to do with data and numbers and surveys and statistics. Qualitative methodology has to do with observations and interviews. Don't get scared off by that stats part of the quantitative methodology. We won't actually be doing this experiment. We're only proposing it. And so all you have to know is that you're doing a quantitative methodology, you're using this type of survey, and that you'd analyze it later using SPSS, which is Statistical Package for the Social Sciences. In a qualitative methodology, right, sounds easier, interviews, observations. It's truly, qualitative research takes much longer, is much more in depth than quantitative research. Your research question truly guides which methodology you've chosen. But all I'm saying is if you choose a qualitative methodology, your chapter 2 is going to be deep and big. So make sure you know your literature. With a quantitative methodology, again, your chapter 2 is going to be heavy, but it's not going to be as heavy as a qualitative methodology, because in a qualitative methodology, you really are breaking ground, and you really have to provide a deep, rich literature review for all the observations and interviews you might want to do after this class. So again, I mean, quantitative, qualitative, it's guided by the research question, but your simplest way to do this proposal is to choose a quantitative methodology, and you'll do a survey, or you'll collect data in some way. Again, you're not actually collecting the data, you're proposing to collect the data because it's a proposal, but it's preferable for a first proposal. It just makes things so much easier and clearer. Theoretical basis. Theoretical basis, some of you may have a theoretical basis and some of you may not have a theoretical basis. It really depends upon your topic. For example, if I was going to do something on the effect of media on preschool children's behavior or something like that, I would think that the first study I would come up with would be like Bandura and social learning theory or observational learning and that Bobo doll study. So I would have a theoretical basis because I would use Bandura's social learning theory as my theoretical basis for that study. If you were doing something like the effect of a humanistic counseling technique on, patient or client outcomes, you would have a humanistic basis. You'd have a theoretical basis looking at humanistic psychology, looking at the works of Rogers and Maslow. Notice Roslow, it's like Rogers and Maslow put together. But yeah, so some of you are going to have a theoretical basis and some of you are not. If you have no theoretical basis, just skip that part. That's totally fine. Definition of terms. We reviewed this in Patent Chapter 1. Anything that you introduce, any variable, any study, any test, you're going to have to operationally define for your readers. So, for example, if I were doing a study on the effect of intelligence on something, I would have to operationally define what in my proposal intelligence was. If you were doing like the effect of something on your dependent variable was teenagers' emotional behaviors, I would have to define what I thought was a teenager. I would also have to define emotional behavior. Operational definitions come from the literature, and so you do have to know your peer-reviewed literature well and utilize that when writing your operational definitions. Finally, you're going to do a summary. You're going to tell me what you've covered in Chapter 1, which is your introduction to the study. And then you're going to tell me what you're going to cover in Chapter 2, and you're just going to say, Chapter 2 will be a literature review on the effect of blank on blank. So it sounds like a big, huge, chunky project, and you do have to spend time writing. I can't stress enough. You should be writing at least an hour or two a day on this. But by Saturday, you should have a really good draft of a proposal that I can read, and I'll be excited to read it. And again, I'll comment on it so that, when we finally get to your final proposal, you'll have a really good final project. Okay. So if you have any questions, if you have any concerns, you email me, you call me. I want to be as accessible as possible for you. And yeah, any questions, just email me. Okay, have a great week, guys. I know you can do this. I'm so excited to read your Chapter 1s. So have fun with this too. Pretend you're like real researchers, which you are. You are. So good luck, you guys.